So you probably have seen these videos everywhere where it says Claude routines are replacing n8n, and it is the new way of writing automation workflows. So I've been trying to use them to automate some of the workflows for myself and for my clients. And I notice it has some serious limitations that I want to show you here, so you know what to expect and what tool to use whenever you want to automate some workflows for your customers. So first of all, if you don't know what Claude Routines is, it's this new feature of Claude Code where you can define a certain routine. For example, summarize my open pull request, or summarize my emails, or find the most important emails that I have. And you can schedule this routine that runs, for example, either daily, which makes it very similar if you're using Cloud Cowork to the schedules. It's exactly the same thing. Or you can schedule it via the API. And if you schedule things via the API, that means you can trigger it from software that you have. And you can also trigger it using a webhook, which is really interesting. So let me show you what I'm trying to do here. So my use case is simple. I have a note taker that is on Fathom. And once the recording finishes, I want Claude Routines to fetch the transcript, summarize key points, and send me an email or send me a Slack update, etc. So all of this is technically possible right now because it's been advertised as it is replacing n8n. And I had this exact workflow in n8n in the past, and it worked really well. And I wanted to see if I can do the same thing with Cloud Code. So here's where things start to break. The first thing is Claude Routine expect you to send an API call with very specific headers and authentication. And you can see it here when I created this Claude Routine. Once we look into the edit in the API, you can see the API that you need to call, and it shows you exactly the request that you need. So you need to send this authorization with this token, etc. So what does that mean? That means if you're writing a software and you want to trigger this, which is on the cloud, you need to send it following something like that. So send these exact requests. And inside, for example, here in the D, you would have the transcript of your Fathom transcript call, for example. And once you want to connect it with, let's say, Slack, etc., so you can just add it here as a connector. I have here Atlassian, whatever. So you can connect Slack, you can collect your email, and then you can tell Claude, send a summary to the user email, but you need to connect it here via MCP, etc. So the Claude would have access to it. And then Claude would orchestrate the whole thing for you, which is really cool. Now, the problem happened when you're trying to connect tools with each other. So for example, I use Fathom to record one-on-one coaching calls with some of the students in my community. And if I want an automation to be triggered the moment a call gets done, so not on a schedule, but literally as a webhook. So that means the moment we finish the transcript, the moment we finish the meeting, I will start the automation. I need to do this through a webhook. And in Fathom, you can do it here where you can add basically an API key, and you can click here on add a webhook. And in the webhook, it asks you for a destination URL. And here is where the problem happens. So usually in n8n, you can write here your webhook URL, usually, so the one from n8n, and you can then see what Fathom expects as a authentication, basically. And you can adjust and be flexible to what this platform is asking from you to be able to integrate with it. If you now go to Claude and go for the call API and copy this one, let's say we copy it and then paste it here, this would not work. And I've tested it and it did not work for me. Why is that? Because Claude also expects certain tokens, etc. And the same thing also from Fathom as well. So for me, this lack of flexibility makes me unable to connect tools and run things on end-to-end and autonomously. So that's why this feature from the routines, while it is interesting, you would still need to call it from some sort of an API. So you need to have either a Python server somewhere, or you even need to have an n8n workflow that basically receive this message and then forward it to Claude Routines. So you need like a middleware, some software in between Fathom and the final software. And the reason this is happening, as I mentioned, is because Claude Routine does not allow for custom HTTP header, which is sent by Fathom. So we don't have this flexibility to do so. And I know this is very technical, but the whole point here is the solution that is provided by Claude works for some cases, and it is quite useful. for example, with platforms that it integrates with automatically, like GitHub, etc. But for stuff that most people are asking for, like a Fathom automation, etc., basically here is Fathom. You need to have n8n. And then finally, n8n would trigger Claude Routines. And that's how it basically works. Otherwise, you always need to adjust the traffic. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So that's also all okay. This is not like a big deal. I just wanted you to know that Claude Routine does not replace automation software like Make, n8n, and Zapier. Like, you still need them as a middleware. So keep that into mind. Otherwise, this whole thing wouldn't work. So, and if you want to make this whole thing agentic workflows, like a truly agentic, if you don't want, for example, to write the visual nodes, you need to replace this basically with Python. And it is a programming language, but then you ask Cloud Code to write this for you. This is one option to do so. And the other option is to have the Claude SDK. And from the Claude SDK, this needs to be then deployed somewhere in the cloud. And then you write some functions that would call the Claude SDK to perform certain actions. And routines alone does not help you with this customization problem that you're going to face. So you need a second solution for that. And you can find about the Agent SDK overview in their documentation, so you can read about it. And this is basically can be installed in any private cloud, for example, AWS, Google Cloud, etc. So you can either use this or you can use their managed agents software, which basically spins up Cloud Code, and it's a little bit more flexible to manage these kind of stuff. The only disadvantage here, if you're selling to European customers, is that this is only now available in the US, and some of them would not be okay of doing that. So they need models that is hosted in Europe, for example. So I hope this clarifies some of the confusion around Claude Routines and what you can and you cannot do with this tool. I think it's a very useful feature from Cloud Code, and I'm sure maybe with the next update, they would give you an option to add these custom authentication, etc. So it becomes truly just like n8n. Until then, unfortunately, we need to have some software in between to connect these two and have a fully end-to-end automation for customers. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have other topics that are concerning you or are on your mind that you would love to have more clarity on, please write them in the comments. I'm happy to do the research, experiment with them, and see what is useful and what is not. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.